your Desired Success Foundation Mastermind. So welcome everyone for what we're going to cover today, getting into a topic that's going to be certainly creating some different angles. And it's been something that's coming up over the last few days, which I'm looking forward to getting into and diving into. So we're all built with the masterminds around the golden rule, which is do unto others as you would have done unto you. And when we're looking at the power of a mastermind, Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich, who wrote many other books as well, he said about the mastermind, it is the principle through which you may borrow and use the education, the experience, the influence, and perhaps the capital of other people in carrying out your own plans in life. It is the principle through which you can accomplish in 1 year more than you could accomplish without it in a lifetime if you depended entirely upon your own efforts for success. So we've got our numbers here to share through the mastermind principles to set the foundation of the call, so everyone's aware as to what the mastermind is about. So if you'd like to start, Lynette.
The purpose of the mastermind is to share our value and connect with like-minded people in order to create wealth in all areas of our lives.
We are here to inspire and challenge each other to reach and exceed goals.
Members committed to their own success as well as the success of every member of the group.
We are committed to meeting in person or virtually for 1 hour every week.
We are present. There is no multitasking or distractions during meetings.
We are collaborative. We listen without interrupting, lecturing or judging.
Celebrate each other's successes without jealousy.
We are honest and participate by giving thoughtful feedback.
We are open and listen to different perspectives without being defensive or offering excuses.
We trust fellow members enough to share fully.
Focused, but we also think it's important to have fun during meetings.
Indeed we do. We are real and authentic, and this is a no BS zone.
We allow ourselves to become completely aligned with each other and the high forces, one mind, one soul, one love.
Tremendous. So thank you for just setting the foundation there for the mastermind. We already know each other's name. We've been on a call a few times, so that's all good. But let's mastermind around today's topic. And today's topic in particular is going to be your education. Now, this, as I said earlier on, this got some interesting feedback and views yesterday when I was going through this topic with the group, and it came up once again on another call this morning. And I feel like it just needs to be shared and in flow, and a lot of people are going to get value from this. So when we're thinking about education, the first question I'm going to ask is, what does education mean to you? So when you think of education, especially an educated person, what does educated mean to you, and what does an educated person mean to you? Does that make sense? So I don't want you to think necessarily, let me just set this foundation to probably make it a bit easier, because some of us have done a lot of personal development work. So let's imagine before we maybe had a shift. So for instance, I'll start with in regards to, I always thought I was dumb. So I always thought I didn't enjoy school. I didn't spend the time. I didn't read any books after school. I didn't really pay much attention. The only reason why I did pay attention was at school was because I was terrified of my mother beating the hell out of me for not paying attention at school. However, when I left school, some of my mates were getting degrees and going to college and university, and I classed them as being educated and being cleverer than me. Whereas for myself, I got a trade. And yet, when I looked around at other people who were at college or university or went down that road, I always saw them as being educated and me not being educated. So I already straight away had created this limitation that if you don't go to college, or you don't finish school, or you don't go to university, then you're not an educated person. So every time I would pick up a book, I straight away told myself that I wasn't going to be able to read it because I wasn't clever enough to absorb the information. I hadn't got the qualifications. The people that I was meeting who had qualifications in other areas, to me, they were successful because they had spent that time to get that piece of paper that gave them the award, the accolade, the qualification, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. But at the same time, that was something that I chose to allow to limit me in my potential. Whereas today, I don't think that way at all. So and I'm not gonna go into what I think today, because that's gonna really tie in once we've all heard where you are all at. But I'd love to hear what your belief around education is or was, and what you would class as an educated person.
My belief around education is you're educated on what you're interested in. Like if you're interested in something, you will go down that path and really look into it. So yeah, I don't believe going to school makes you educated. It's how you, like, what you're interested in, and yeah, later on in life, I think you become more educated on a whole heap of different topics because you're more interested in getting into them. So that's me.
Thanks, Lynette. I certainly agree a lot with Martin, and I would say, and also with Lynette, I would say that the biggest part of my education has been since I left school, not just because I'm old, but because I've learned more since I left school, and certainly learned more since Facebook came out, that's for sure. Like Martin, I actually was a B student, a minus student, but it was hard work. I had to work hard at that. And I got pregnant at 15, left school at 16 without taking my O levels, even though I was given the opportunity, because I had the belief that I wouldn't get the good grades I knew I was capable of, so I wouldn't take them at all. And it took years for me to realize how that's impacted my life, of seeing people who have gone to university and how much it's affected my imposter syndrome, my self-worth. And it was only about 4 years ago, it was actually when I trained as a consultant with Bob, and I realized I'd spent over $100,000 in 1 year on my personal development education. And I went, but that is an education. I don't need a degree, I don't need a piece of paper. I have the education that I need to do what I do. And even now, that still comes up. It still comes up. I think I've got it sorted, and I think, yeah, I know, I'm confident in what I do, and then something will come up and it still sideswipes me. So it's still something that I have to keep working at. This belief that, like somebody invited me to a psychiatry group. I'm thinking, oh, I don't belong in there, I don't belong there. And then I'm in it and I'm scared to say anything because I don't have that education. I don't have a degree. I don't even have freaking O levels, let alone a degree. So for me, it has been, and like you say, Martin, it has been very limiting, and I hadn't realized. I've always gone on and done what I've wanted, but I didn't realize how much I played myself down and played my experience down. And I did learn many years ago when I was still in the UK, so over 20 years ago, one of my roles in the Reserve Army was a specialist instructor teaching people how to teach. And I then moved to college and I taught people how to teach in college, and it was the new MBQ. So it was a little bit, not full teacher stuff, but trainer. What would be the trainer and assessor now? And I had to create the program. I had to do everything from scratch. And they wanted me to do an undergraduate program as part of my role as a lecturer at college. And I started this program. What a freaking joke. It didn't teach anybody how to teach. It taught them all about OC health and safety and all about the rules and regulations and all about this sort of stuff. And I know from my experience in the military that the people that we used to, our local college, which is often where reserve soldiers come from, were all training to be teachers. And they would come on my courses and say, I wish we'd been taught this in uni. Because we taught how to put a lesson together. We taught how to do all this sort of stuff. And teachers aren't taught how to do that. And it just opened my eyes up to actually what is an education? What is a degree? It's not teaching people how to do what they need to do. It's teaching them all the bullshit that goes with it. So yeah, there's still every now and again, I think, yeah, it'd be nice to have a degree in psychology or something like that. But is it really going to give me what I need? No, it's not. But no matter how much I can say that, there is still, no matter how much work I've done on it, still that little bit that makes me feel inferior because I don't have that piece of paper. No matter the results I get are far better and far quicker than a bloody psychiatrist or psychologist, there is still that not good enough thing that sits, and it sits under the surface. It's not there at the top, but it sits and it does. It still affects me, so it's still ongoing work to do with that. That's my perspective on education.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Lynette and Lisa. Corey, have you just joined us again? You back? Oh, you're on mute, mate. You're on mute.
Sorry, team. I just had to take that phone call.
Right. So the topic is around
what are we talking about?
education. So I know Adam has been sat there waiting patiently as well. We were talking around what an educated person is to you, what you would class as education, before you did all this personal development kind of work. So I had said before around, I classed myself as dumb, and I didn't go to college really. I didn't go to university. So everyone else that did and got a degree and so on, I classed them as clever and me as dumb. And I didn't have the ability to read a book and all that kind of stuff. So it's really coming from that place of what do you class as an educated person prior, and as your mindset shifted around it, and what do you think about it today? So Adam and Corey, I know you guys have got the ability to go.
Yeah, Martin, thanks. So I guess my belief now is where I am now in life is education is fun, but it was not always the case. I think there's a general theme that seems to be running here tonight about some of those lack of self-beliefs and limiting beliefs around education, and how we see ourselves as being educated. And I think through my time through school, if I go back that far, I think, I was educated, but was I educated? Was I filling in time going through class because that was something that you had to do? You had to go to school. Did I enjoy it? Probably not really. And for me, I left school in year 10 and didn't go on to any further education, and decided I didn't go into a trade or anything particular. I went into working, because I knew if I work, I'll get money, and if I get money, I can have things. So that was me being educated on how to survive in life. But now for me, and I did see people that went on to university and so forth, but and I saw those people as being educated, but not necessarily educated in the areas that I was being educated in, working in life, and how to conduct yourself in life. And I saw some of those people come out of being educated at uni that were probably good at, in my area of sales and marketing, were good at writing marketing reports, but when it come to selling, couldn't actually have a conversation with someone. So as much as education is good, but in that formal sense, and yes, it is for those people that follow those interests of doctors and that pursuit of medicine and all those other trades and so forth. I guess my view on education is it's sometimes more about life, and I think what Lynette said is about what you enjoy doing rather than what someone thinks you should be doing. But now I think I've learned a lot more about education of being fun, whereas once it was probably scary, because I limited myself in the belief that I could be that person that could actually learn and do something with that. So now I enjoy education and so forth, stepping up to these masterclasses to learn from other people and still absorb as much as you can, and to be educated in a fun, resourceful and a growth way.
Yeah, powerful, mate. But like you say, it's interesting how we have been thinking very similar across the board, and how a lot of that, as we've come to realize, is just limiting beliefs. Corey, rock our world now, brother.
Rock your world. I don't know. You're setting the bar too high, Martin. So I've been sitting with this a lot lately around my kids, actually. So I was on a program last week. I did 2 days, and the same day, a young guy, Shaq, told a story about how when he was at school in year 9, year 10, whatever it was, the school counselor or career coach or whatever came up to him and said, "Look, Shaq, you're a smart guy. You need to do economics, physics, and et cetera, et cetera." And then he went home and spoke to his parents and said, "Look, I want to do outdoor education and sports and rec, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that's where my passion is." And their parents said, "Yeah, but you're a smart guy. You need to do what the career counselor's telling you to do," right? So he followed that path, right? Did really well, got like 90 in his TE, whatever the equivalent of that is. I don't know, it's different everywhere. But his year 12, he did really well, got great marks. And then he spent a year at university, spent 15 grand or whatever it was, getting a degree in engineering, because that's what everyone told him to do. And then he quit. And now he's doing outdoor ed and adventure training, et cetera, et cetera. And he shared this story with a bunch of 15-year-olds. So I was sitting with that around how I create potential pressure for my kids to do things that suit my agenda rather than suiting their agenda. Like, I believe I have children that are relatively intelligent. They can hold a conversation, and so I therefore create pressure around, "You're intelligent, you need to do." So I've kind of shifted away from that, going, okay, what do you love? How can you do what you love and make money? You know, if that means you want to make parkour videos on YouTube, Blake, then go and do that. Like, not kind of being attached to, I guess for me, I had this attachment to Riley and Blake being the first kids in our family in 5 generations to go to university. Like, that's my story, because I didn't go. And then I'm like, so I'm a good coach, right? I've been coaching people, and I've had massive change in these people's lives that I'm coaching at the moment. And I had this attachment to, I need to get a psychology degree to be good at what I do. But it was just a story, right? It was just a story like, how can I charge more than a psychologist if I don't have the piece of paper? But it's about, you know, I know psychologists that have no emotional intelligence. You know, I know psychologists that I've outgrown in very short periods of time. You know, 2 or 3 sessions, I think, oh man, I'm not learning anything here. I've outgrown this situation. So I think there's like layers of intelligence, right? There's like intellect, which everyone who comes into this space has it. But then there's emotional intelligence as well. And I think emotional intelligence is around that, like, street smarts, that capacity to sell and et cetera, et cetera. Like, that's what made me, before I became a conscious man, I use that term loosely. You know, I was the best. Like, guys used to say, like, "Corey, you could sell ice to an Eskimo," you know, but it was never about, I was never about selling. I was always about selling me, right? It was always about pitching myself. So I'd walk into a room and I'd look for something familiar. I was a go-kart on the wall. "Oh, who raced go-karts?" "Oh, that's my son." "Let's talk about that for 40 minutes. We don't even talk about, yes, it would. We don't even talk about what I'm selling, right? It's all about building a relationship. So I guess that's where I was at, you know, in my life. You know, you said something beautiful this morning, Martin. You know, people only ready, you can share the message as much as you want, and people only hear it when they're ready to hear it. You know, and having any expectations beyond that is, you know, just setting yourself up for failure, right? So yeah, so for me, that's what education is. You know, it's about just following your heart, you know, having that capacity to follow your heart. You know, like for me, I was a good talker, so I went and ultimately I ended up going and selling stuff, but I didn't see myself as a talker, right? I saw myself as like, fixer and to build things, you know, because that's what I did with my dad when I was working at home. I'd be on the tools, you know, putting on gyprock. You know, when I was 10 years old, I was doing all this handyman stuff. So, like, I've got two trades. I'm a boilermaker and a glazier. You know, I don't do either of them, but that's what I thought I needed. And then I was working for a company, and this guy's like, we had a hole in our sales, and I was like running operations, and I doubled their turnover, like while I was working as a part-time sales guy, bringing work in the business. So he then said, well, you're not. So it took someone to say to me, you're not an operations guy, you're a sales guy. I'm like, no, I'm an operations guy. You know, it took that shift to.
It was. I was watching a. Has anybody seen Suits, the show, the TV show? So I got addicted to it years ago. I'm just going back through because I didn't realize they'd done a new series of it, or a new episode, or whatever it was. Yeah, it'd be a series. And one of the things that came up was one of the girls had been, or one of the workers, so to speak, had been given the task of creating this algorithm that would go through and bring everybody's results and then pick who was the top people that were to stay with the company and the people at the bottom were to leave. And one of the people in that list was actually somebody that one of the top people didn't want to leave the company. So this girl was saying, well, I built the algorithm and it works perfectly. And this person is in that bottom category. He has to go. And the management were like, no, he doesn't. And what they did was they took it down and they actually said, who are the people who are the highest achievers? And all these people were the highest achievers around him, around his desk. They said, he's the leader. He's the one that's actually motivating them to become and excel in their field, in their area. And once she realized that the algorithm could only go so far, the actual connection. So when you look at what what was coming up for me, that whole story came up for me when you were talking then, Corey, because it's that thing of somebody saw something in you that was different to where you were, and that's what's so powerful when we, in my opinion, when we get around people who are what we may class as successful in their career in an area where we enjoy to be. So like, I love being around people who are in personal development. I love being around people who I class as vibrating on a higher level than me, not better than me, just vibrating on a higher level than me. And therefore I can learn and grow, and they can advise me on books to read or audios to listen to or a call to be on or whatever it may be, knowing that there's something in that for me. Pretty much like with Corey and I. When I first reached out to Corey, I was like, I know Corey is going to be amazing on this stuff. But Corey and I didn't really have much of a relationship. We were more, what's the word?
Oh, passing ships, mate. We didn't know each other at all.
Yeah, and that's, but there was something that I knew, that what little I had seen of Corey online, that I just know he's going to be of huge value to this. And I know that he's going to get value. Because, and you said something earlier on as well, Corey, that just said, I am a great coach, something like that. And I love that, because I am a great coach. If you can stand there and own that space, it doesn't matter what anybody says, because it's inside in that belief. Every person in this case who Corey chooses to work with or show up in this is going to feel that this guy is a great coach.
Yeah.
And I was actually, when we were on our walk before, and I was thinking around the education, and I went, I don't have a certificate to say I'm a speaker, but I can speak. We can all speak really well. We could all get up on stage and speak if we really wanted to, but I know I can get up there and captivate an audience and hold an audience and make them laugh. I know that I can do that. But I don't have a certificate to say I'm a speaker. And that's not to knock anybody who does have, and I'm certainly not knocking the educational system. My ex-partner, Lauren, she's a school teacher, and she tries to do all kinds of different things outside of the curriculum. but they have a small window and they're very much dictated on what they can and can't do. So, you know, it's a whole system that definitely does need improving. But at the same time, I do think that we have to look at ourselves and go, well, what can I do? And every single person that I listen to, like Bob Proctor, he talks about it. There are many people out there who are extremely educated based on what we class as education in society, who haven't done anything, who are struggling to even pay the bills. And there's people who have left school because they were kicked out of school at an early age, who've done no more education, and they're super successful.
Yeah, because it's following your passion, right? I personally think that we should surround ourselves with our peers, with people who can learn from us and people who we can learn from. And it's a philosophy that I apply to all areas of my life. You know, when I go away, like I've got a thing in the end of September, it's a 2-day retreat, and I'm 44, and the average age of the people in that group will be 22, 23. They'll be younger guys and girls. And what one of the guys said to me, Shaq actually said to me, he goes, Corey, the beauty of you is you know when to step up and lead, but you then step back, but you also learn. It's so, he goes, it's bizarre watching you, because 1 minute you're the learner, the next minute you're the leader, and then you're the learner, and then you're the leader, and you're just shifting to and from that space all the time. I think when we learn that skill, that's when we really have the opportunity to grow, because if we think we're the leader, like if you think, I was listening to Peter Attia today, he was talking to, who writes the Daily Stoic? Anyway, he wrote like the obstacle is the way, et cetera, and they were talking about this, and Peter Attia's like, he's got 7 analysts working on a bunch of information, pulling it together so he can write a book that he's been writing for 3 years. And he's like, how do I publish this book right now? Because I know that in a month's time, I'm going to know more than what I know now. And like, so basically at some point you have to stick a pin in it and like send the information out into the world, you know? So you just wrote education's restrictive, Lisa. I don't think it is restrictive. I think it gives our kids an opportunity to like grow and learn fundamentals of how to read, how to write, and how to be humans and interact and connect with each other. But the real education starts after that. But I think you need like some form of grounding to be able to step into that. Like, I think if you went and had no education, that would be way more restrictive than having the system that we have now. You're muted.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to pressing buttons and nothing's happening. Yeah, I do agree with you, Corey. I just think that the way the education system is set up is not to encourage thought process. It's to limit us, to train us to follow certain rules. And I know it is changing, and I know that there are individual teachers out there who are working very hard against a very restrictive system. And I certainly believe that children need to learn to read and write and basic mathematics and all that sort of stuff. I just think that there are much better ways of doing it. Now, some people suit the education system. I've got several clients who homeschool, and they have some of their kids function better in the school system. But there are other kids who really don't function. And I know that I personally would have functioned in a much different environment. I was a square peg in a round hole. And I know that it restricted me on lots of things. So instead of teaching me how to think for myself, how to rationalize, how to be creative, it taught me that, no, I can only do X, Y, and Z because this is what the box says. I'll give you an example. With mathematics, I hated maths. I was never any good at it, except I always got the answers right. But I never got the working out right. So I always got the answers wrong because my working outs were wrong.
Yeah.
But I always got the answer right. My teacher had no idea how I got the answers right with my workings out, but I always got them right. But I always got marked wrong because my workings out were wrong. So to this day, I hate mathematics.
Yeah.
Now, if I'd had a system that said, wow, let's go and explore how this happens, then who knows? I could have created a whole new freaking mathematics system. I don't know. But it shut me down from an area. And whether we like it or not, mathematics is the core of life. It comes into everything somewhere. But it shut me down. It shut me down from science because science was mathematical. So that total thing just shut me down, where in actual fact, I am good at mathematics. Just not the freaking way I was taught.
Yeah, it's interesting just watching my kids and how just since Riley started school, how it's evolved from being a bunch of desks facing the front of the room to having little clusters where there's clusters of 6 and the kids can all sit with whoever they want to sit with. And there's no kind of boundaries around that. And then if they're reading, they're sitting on bean bags, and like the classroom environment is really shifting to one of curiosity and, you know, exploration of stories. You know, they give them 6 pictures and say, hey, go write a story about one of these pictures. But that's it. That's all they've got, you know. So there really is, I feel there's this shift towards what the belief is that employees are going to want people who are diverse and curious and are able to think on their own feet without being told what to do, right? And that's kind of I feel like what's happening in the education system is that the kids that have come out of school over the last 10, 15 years have kind of been pigeonholed into this box of no curiosity. They've just been like, this is how you learn, this is what it is, et cetera, et cetera. But I feel like the system is changing, and it's changing relatively fast considering how complex the education system is in, I guess, globally, you know. So I guess that's just my observation of education at the moment and of how it's shifting.
Yeah, cool. One of the questions that was asked, Corey, from Petra was, how have you changed your conversations with your kids now regarding your previous expectations? And hey, Patricia.
How have I changed my expectations? I haven't. How have I changed my conversations? I haven't really changed my conversations yet because I haven't had time. Right, my kids are 8 and 11, so there's going to be time. I guess how they will change is that when Riley comes home and says, the careers counsellor said to me I should do A, B, C, D, I'm going to say, what do you want to do? I'm going to let him drive what he wants to do. Because ultimately, when my kids turn 18, like I've been writing a blog post about this, actually. I started writing yesterday, but then I posted something else because I had something that happened in my life yesterday that I felt was more important to post about. But I've been writing a post around this, around how we have no control over our kids, right? Even as I have my kids in my house, the only control I have is to keep them safe and feed them and give them love. That's it. I don't even have the control to keep them safe, really. I have the control to give them love and shelter and food. Like that's the extent of my capacity to control my kids. Beyond that, as parents, all we have is the capacity to influence. We only have a capacity to share what we learn. And I guess I'm a bit different to that in that I expose my kids to a lot of adult concepts through, like, I'm in the car and the Mastermind's on and I'm driving to school, the kids are listening to the Mastermind. You know, if I've got a podcast on, the kids are listening to it, and sometimes it might be a bit old content, and I'll pause it and then we'll have a conversation around what that means in language that they understand. So all we have is the capacity to influence our kids, you know. Like Riley has this thing that I don't want to be famous. I don't want people knocking on my door, you know, like, so that's a massive restriction for him because his belief of famous is wealthy. They kind of go hand in hand, right? So I'm saying, well, that's actually not true because you could be, you know, the guys who own Ferro, they sold that company for $300 million and nobody knows who they are. So there's different ways to kind of look at it. So I guess that kind of explains how I'm talking to my kids, I guess, in general. So those expectations I had were really around how was I guess what I was talking about was future projection of where I was driving them to go to university, where I was driving. So when they're 15, 16, it would have been this push, like, go to uni, go to uni, go to uni, go to uni. Where now I think, you know, you can build, like I've said to Riley, you can work anywhere in the world if that's what you want to do. Like, what does that look like? How do you earn money doing that? How could you make, so this is the conversation I have with my 11-year-old. If you want to travel around the world, how could you make $1 million a year doing that? You know, can you develop an AI system? Can you build a website? Can you, like, what are you passionate about that you can do from anywhere in the world? Like that's, because at the moment, that's his passion is I want to travel. So how do you have travel and have an impact is the conversation I'm having with him, you know, like what, it's great you want to travel, but how can you travel and have an impact? And it might be, who knows, it might be having a travel blog. Who knows? I don't know what it looks like, right? The thing is, the scary thing for me, and I think for them even, is that the world's changing so fast, you know, like there's people who run, I've got a friend who runs a multi-level marketing business through fat whatever it is, and her daughter is a social media manager for 8 of the people on her team. She earns $60,000 a year managing social media for 6 people. Like, it's insane, right? So you don't know where are robotics. I guess I'm a bit of a futurist, right? Like, where are robotics coming? AI. There's an AI robot now. You can give it some basic content and show it 3 websites that you like, and it'll build you a website. It takes it 15 minutes. You know, so coding is becoming obsolete. So do we force down coding, or where are the jobs really? Where are the opportunities? I think the opportunities lie in following what you love to do, right? I love to coach people. I love doing this. So that's what I'm doing. And that's the conversation. Like, my kids go, why do you do this, Dad? They go, you got so many jobs, you know. I'm a personal trainer. I work with teenagers doing rites of passage. I'm a business coach, and I come on masterminds. I'm not getting paid for this, but I consider it a part of my life, like a part of my working life, you know. It's my education. It's my feedback. So my kids get to see you don't have to have one job. You can do whatever it is you love. And I think it's kind of a unique situation, right? Because most people have kids who are working, they've got parents that are working 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week. And then more often than not, kids go and follow on with what the parents are actually doing. So, and my son talks about this, you know, I could go on for hours about this. You know, like my son said to me the other day, I'm so glad I got a dad that is around to talk to me, you know, and I feel like I'm not around enough sometimes, but we don't need to be in our kids' pockets all the time. We just need to give them quality time when we're there to give them time. Basically, if we give our kids quality time when we're there with them, then they benefit from that massively. Like our undivided attention, that's where our kids benefit, and they probably need an hour a week. Really is all they need.
Yeah, wow. Thanks for sharing, Corey. You're on the roll there, mate, as always, and it's great. One of the things that was coming up for me there was around just being free and doing what makes you happy. Was it's kind of like with food. We don't just eat porridge every day, so we have different meals and whatever we choose to enjoy, and that's the flavors of life via our senses. And bringing that into, well, why can't we do whatever we want to do? And I know that, Patricia, you're very passionate about what you do, and I saw you nodding a lot with what Corey was saying. Is there anything you'd like to share around that?
I think what I really liked what Corey said was, well, first he said, you know, what can you do that makes $1 million, right? But he also said travel and have an impact, right? So most of the times we know that to have a real, like, bigger impact, right, it does cost money, right? It costs money to build, I'm going to say, you know, wellness centers and different things, or provide, you know, yeah, there's hands-on and we need to do that as well, but it does take, you know, money to make some things happen. So, or most things happen, really. And so I really like that. I think that, you know, being a parent, my oldest is 21, and so she's going into her 3rd year at university, and this is supposed to be the year that she does a year abroad, and she'll be doing away learning, which she did last year too, online. And my middle is 18, and she was supposed to go off. She got accepted into the program that she was, accepted into, but she decided to take a break, right? And I encouraged to take a year break, because I think that there's so much pressure on our children of, just go, keep going, keep learning, right? And then you never really discover really what it is that you want to be or do when you grow up. And so she's taking a year. So she's here, and I'm happy, and she'll figure it out as she goes. And I told her, like, just watch, listen, and pay attention to how you feel and what you want to do and whatever. So she's here, so that's good. And then Lily Alex, I have another one. She's 2.5, and she's not starting school for another couple years. But I really am aiming, like, every day that I do something, I work towards, teaching Lily at home and incorporate everything that I do. Like, she's on, Think and Grow Rich. When I read Think and Grow Rich, Lily Alex has heard Think and Grow Rich since she came out of the womb. And yeah, I think just including her and figuring out how to homeschool. So I don't know how to homeschool yet, but I'm going to figure it out, right? So that's where I'm at with what Corey was saying. But yeah.
I think a lot of parents have been learning how to homeschool with all this COVID and lockdown.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah, and I think Corey said that his kids were 8 and 11, right? So I really respect parents who, are learning the homeschooling thing at 8 and 11, because just like adults, right? Kids get into habits and routine, right? And so emotionally, physically, mentally, everything, they're all full of all kinds of raging emotions at those ages already. And to take them and have to homeschool them, plus we have our own, things that we're doing as adults, right? So to put it all together, I just raise of a hand like clapping for, parents who are doing homeschooling right now. Yeah.
It was interesting because when we homeschooled, we've been very blessed in Western Australia. We've had a very short quarantine period. We probably had maybe 8-10 weeks, and there was 3 weeks of school holidays in that. So, but when we're homeschooling, I'd say to the boys, all right, you get your work done, and then once you're done, you're done. So Blake would get up. They were different, right? Blake would get up at 6 a.m. And I'm like, what are you doing, bro? It's like, I'm getting my work done, Dad. By 8:30, he was done. His day was his own, right? And they had to check in on their iPads at school. And I'd like message Linda. I'm like, do you want to check in on the iPads? It's like, where are you guys? Oh, we're down the beach. Like, we were walking around parks collecting leaves. It was coming into autumn. So we're having conversations about change of seasons and et cetera, et cetera. And that's kind of how we did it. We didn't really do a lot of, I'd help them out if they got stuck, but we really just spent time out in nature, going for walks, going on bike rides, just being out in the world is what we did.
Because isn't that what is it the Steiner school? Yeah. They do all that stuff where they just let the kids be free and watch them and then figure out what's the best way to stimulate them to help them with the growth. And that goes really back to what you were saying, Lisa, around the ability to solve the problem or the challenge, whatever it would be, but couldn't quite explain it the way the teacher wanted to explain it. And I know that in some cases they'd actually mark you as a fail because you couldn't give them what they wanted, but you still got the result.
Yeah.
But you're quiet. We can't hear you for some reason, Lisa. Or I can't. No. You're unmuted. But... Well, one of the things, whilst Lisa's getting a thing sorted out, and this was, as I was saying earlier on, just before you came on, Patricia, we had this call yesterday and we were going over a lot, and so it was an incredible call that we had. And I was on another call this morning with the Gold Star group in Noble Goldman, and that ended up going down a similar road. And I wasn't facilitating it. It just happened to go down that road. And then when I was out walking today, I was thinking about this and I thought, you know what? Because it's going to be a different group of people, we'll just cover the same topic because I'd love to hear their side of it as well. And but I am going to cover this section here in the book that I said yesterday, because it really helps bring a whole new light to around education, where Napoleon had shared here that an educated person is not necessarily one who has an abundance of general or specialized knowledge. An educated person is one who has developed the faculties of their mind that they may acquire anything they want or its equivalent without violating the rights of others, which is really powerful then, because it means we're going within and we're not actually taking away from anybody else. And I use because in the book he says, and once again, I apologize to Patricia for going over this, even though I know you've read the book 11 times. It says afterwards, Henry Ford comes well within the meaning of this definition. And that was because when Napoleon met Henry Ford, all he was getting was yes and no answers. And Andrew Carnegie said, you need to go and speak to Henry Ford. He's going to be one of the world's changers. And Napoleon came away going, I can't imagine he'd ever achieve anything in his life. And we all know what he has achieved. So it just goes to show that what was perceived even back then and what we perceive today in many cases as the educated person will be the person that succeeds. It's the way that we are bringing out what we've got within in our best and truest form. That's been one of the biggest things, that when I read that and I heard that, and then it was constantly being drilled in from all angles, mainly through Bob Proctor in particular, was that, wow, all of a sudden I'm hearing and these people speaking, and as I said earlier on, they were kicked out of school. They'd gone to prison for something that might have been like a tax thing that they weren't doing tax evasion. It just so happened with a business that they bought, or something didn't quite happen, and where we tend to label them and go, well, they're never going to achieve anything in their life. They had turned everything around and went on and achieved great things and impacted thousands to millions of lives around the world. And it's like, well, what's my excuse then? I didn't get my GCSEs at school. What's my excuse? Am I going to allow that to not let me go and achieve whatever I wanted to achieve, my desire? So it's, powerful section in the book, that part. Yeah, Patricia.
Yeah, I want to say hi to Corey and Adam, and I think Lisa's on here. And I'm actually Patricia, not Napoleona. That's just a whole alias thing, jokes. But I want to say, like, when you bring up that part of the book, Martin, the story that comes to mind to me is when Henry Ford, they called him an ignorant man, and he went to court, right? Yeah. And as he's on the stand, and I can remember I was hit by transports, right? So it led me onto this whole personal development journey and finding myself in stuff, right? So I could relate to these tests that they were giving to me at the lawyer's office and through doctors and stuff. I was like, this is ridiculous. I have a 3.7 GPA, which I think is pretty good. And I don't even know. I would look this up in the dictionary. I would ask a friend. I don't know. I would call somebody. I can't answer this. I know I'm getting it wrong. But anyway, so I totally flunked these IQ tests or whatever it was that they were giving me. But on the stand, Henry Ford had said to the judge, like, you've got 2 degrees, you've got an education. Do you know the answer to this? Right? Well, of course not, right? Most of us, even if we do have all the education and have been doing it, we may need to look something up. We may need to call a friend. We may, that's the power of the mastermind and having surrounded by people who, will have the answer to what you want, right? Like, you can, within this network, we have, Rolodexes, I'm aging myself a little bit, I'm a little bit older. We have these Rolodexes, right? That we can look up and say, okay, well, Martin, I can connect you here, right? So he said, I have push buttons at my disposal. And, and when the engineering team, it wasn't actually Henry Ford that designed the car, right? He had a team that just didn't give up. They were just persistent, and he just key on finding the right individuals that would push themselves, right? But he didn't do it all himself, right? It took a team. So that's the story I got from that book.
Yeah, I remember hearing that, and that I know that when you look at we covered this around the team, because some people have resistance when they hear come and join the team. It's like, oh bloody hell, it's one of those pyramid schemes. I don't want anything to do with it. But when you look at it, in all fairness, and I shared this on the call, every single person that's out there that's been successful has had people around them that have helped them, even if it's family members, whatever it will be. It's a team of people. It's a collaboration. And when we think of, I'm not going to use the tennis player I was going to do, because apparently he had a bit of a spit at the US Open. But you think of Andy Murray. There we go. There's another tennis player. But it's, even though he's playing on the court on his own against another player, it's all his team behind him, because he's always looking up at that box at his coach and the other people. And he goes away and we don't see what's going on behind the scenes. Like even when we think of Apple, he's not with us anymore, but we think of Steve Jobs. But it's the whole of all the working team at Apple, even the people in the Apple stores, that when you walk in, who are so enthusiastic about the product. Like, that helps the whole thing keep moving and Apple get the results that they've got. Go, Lisa. Can't hear you. I don't know what's going on. I can't.
Microphones, they work and then they stop.
Oh, we've got you now.
I've got 4. I've taken my microphone out. Yeah, and I think within lies the issue with education, and that is that as education, we're taught to do everything by ourselves. We're not taught to work as teams, and it sounds like from what Corey was saying that is changing. But if we do a test, we have to do it by ourselves. And yet to function well in the real world, we need to work as a team. And we're not taught that at school. It's on our own results. And yet, as you've already alluded to with different examples here, it's that one person might not have those skills, but has the ability to pull those skills in around them. I know I need to work in a team. I can't do what I want on my own. Admin, forget it. I need people who are good at admin to work with me. Yeah, but that's where the school system lets us down so badly, is that we might work in teams when we're learning, but when we're tested on our own ability instead of as a group. Okay, go fix this problem, go find a solution, or do whatever. And that is the real issue. But as you were talking earlier on, Patricia, the role of a teacher, whether it's a homeschooler or a teacher, is to provide provide an environment for learning. That's all you have to do. And that's what Corey's doing so well. He's taking what is already there and he's turning it into a learning opportunity. That's all we have to do. We inherently, as humans, want to learn. We're for expansion and growth all the time. What I see, certainly for me, but I'm going back a long, long time, is that the education system did the opposite. It closed us in. It stopped that desire for learning. Yes, I've rediscovered it later in life, but I know a lot of people who will never learn again because of the education system that shut them down. Yeah, and it's only my natural curiosity that has led me to personal development. If I hadn't done that, then I would have been stuck like everybody else. Because the system didn't teach me to do it's only the last 3 or 4 years I've realized how important it is for me to work as a team, not on my own. Because all these years I've been trying to do it on my own, because that's what you have to do. You can do this. Well, I'm good at what I do. I'm like Corey, I'm an awesome freaking coach, but I'm freaking useless at admin and finances because they're maths. Yeah, I need that team around me. But our education system doesn't teach that, the power of a team. Where you bring all these people, we've all got different skill sets for a reason. None of us are really good at everything. So the idea is that we work together as a team, and that's what I would like to see with the education system shifting, is away from structure. Give a group of kids a problem, and you will find out, you will discover who the natural leaders are. You will find out who the natural problem solvers are. You will find out all those skills, and then you build those kids on those skills that they've got, instead of knocking them down because they can do it correctly. They didn't follow the system. Then that's what the education system was created for, was to be able to follow the system. So I'll shut up now. Rant over.
Well, the education system didn't actually really exist before Henry Ford. That's when it kind of got created. The 40-hour.
It was created for the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, the
They
40-hour
needed
work
to-
week didn't exist before Henry Ford. Like he's
Right.
responsible for a lot of big changes in how the world operates. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting area, and I know it can rustle a few feathers when we start diving in. Adam, you unmuted yourself. Did you want to share something?
Yeah, just reflecting on what Lisa was saying, and I think about the education, and it's like if you put it at it's developed as one product for all, you know, and it's not always that one product is conducive or it doesn't match everyone's you know, personalities, characters, and therefore the product that suits the ones that want to be educated and can see that they can get something out of it will adapt and get what they want out of it. Whereas the other ones, where I think a bit like what Lisa was saying, if they could come together as a collaborative, as a as a mastermind, as a team, would probably find that the system would be so much more favourable for them, so much more enjoyable, and get a lot more growth out of the education system. Yeah, and I guess I look from my reflective view of where I've come from is left year 10, but then have a daughter that's was very, I'm not sure, but very, where she got it from, but very intelligent, and has gone on to university and is just, you know, really embracing the education. But she's going on to learn optometry, but I think also from a parent that's done some personal development work has been to able to contrast that journey along the way through her high school years, to not be opinionated in the views of what I think she should do, but be able to reflect and contrast and give her a reflective view on what the possibilities are, that then to come to her own conclusion on what she wants to do going forward. And because she has a passion to then at the end of that to be able to give value by giving something back to people through caring, but also then to be able to give her time down the track to be able to go to third world countries and give her time, her free time, to be able to do that as well. So she has, from a pretty young age, but matured to have a vision for where she wants to go with her education as well. So just a reflective view on where it can limitate us, where we can be limited, but then where we can actually see the opportunity and flourish and see a vision for it.
Yeah, great share, buddy. I was actually just taking some notes there, ready for my 3 big takeaways. And it's always great that hearing around this and what each of the parents do in their own way, or have done or come to realize, especially for self. You know, I mean, I'm not going to say clearly, but I am the youngest on the call. But even so, it was still, I know. But even so, it was still, 23 years ago, almost 24 years ago that I left school. So, and I'm amazed that when I look back, how I just felt lost. You know, I was just trying to do the right thing based on what I believed was the right thing for my mum and dad, of going to school and getting an education. And that I would demand that I went to a school so far out of where I lived. It cost them a fortune to send me there just in the bus. It didn't cost anything to go to school. Just the bus cost a fortune. It was an hour and a half of a journey to get to school. So, and it was expensive for them. And my brother went there as well. And yet, you know, when we came out, I remember reflecting on it and feeling guilty to my mum and dad because we didn't get what we would class as an educated, we didn't come out educated, like we weren't a doctor, we weren't a lawyer or anything. My brother was a welder and I was a carpenter, you know, and it was, but the biggest thing my mum had always said was, "Are you happy?" I'm like, "Yeah." She said, "That's all that matters to your dad and I. As long as you're happy, that's all that matters." Yeah, we had to struggle and sacrifice through that process. But then it's only now when I look and go back and go, wow, I didn't read books for 20 years because the books I read in school never interested me. So I was like, well, the books don't interest me. And it was because it wasn't what book do you want to read. It was even when I remember at high school, if you were a certain level, you were allowed to do a different language. But if you were under that grade, you had to learn French. I didn't want to learn bloody French. So naturally, there was already a barrier. And they're like, well, you're not listening, you're not paying attention. I don't want to be here. I have no interest. I'm half Italian. I want to learn Italian. Well, your grades aren't good enough. Well, if I want to do it, then surely I'm going to succeed and do well in that because I have a desire to do it. I don't have a desire to do this, so you're not going to get me to do it. And therefore, you're going to give me a grade and you're going to put me in a box, a category that says I'm not good enough. At this point in my life, I'm like, it's absolutely bloody bonkers. But I know that it's a system, and I know that like I said earlier, especially from a teacher's angle, they're very limited to what they can do. They have to go and just do what they can do. But it's that thing of, and this is where I really, really love what you were saying earlier, in particular, Patricia, around your Read and Think and Grow Rich with Lily. Was it Lily?
Yeah, it's Lily Alex.
Lily Alex. You're reading that, and she's just like absorbing it, sponge. And that has to have some level of positive effect. Because if it's having a positive effect at this stage in our lives, wow.
I want to say I've created an I am statement, right? So we do our I am statements in the morning, and I add in not just I am brilliant, but I am like making big choices in the world, or I am, in alignment with my assignment, right? So I've added on, and then Lily Alex has her little I am statements, and she does,
That's so cool. That's so cool. I know we've gone a bit over time, but it's been a powerful topic, and I'm really, really glad and happy and grateful for each and every one of you. Even I know that Lynette and Corey had to drop off. I'm very grateful for you each coming on and sharing your side of it as well, because it's such a powerful, and it can be a very intimidating topic and controversial topic as well. Certainly, I know there'll be people who are triggered either way. But this is what the Mastermind's about, hearing the different ideas of what people are doing. And I know that with what's been said today around the positive influence we can have on the children, like Corey listening to the Mastermind in the morning with his kids. We had an hour drive somewhere a few months back, and when we got there, Corey had said what he was listening to, and the lads were, it was all personal growth material, and they were just loving it. And that's, I'm just beaming like a Cheshire cat, as they say back in England. And that's just like, because I just find it fascinating. I wish I had that opportunity. Or at least to absorb that. But at the same time, everything that I did get and the experience I've had through the childhood years was perfect for where I'm at today, because I'm able to connect and reflect and understand on it all from a different angle, rather than, well, I don't know what you're talking about because I never experienced that. So everything is, I've come to learn, is perfect. We just have to find a way to actually then live by what feels right to us and express that and connect with those people who are ready to hear it, which is so beautiful and empowering. Is there anything anybody wants to finish on before we wrap this up?
No, I think I'm pretty good.
Yeah, sorry, Adam. I just want to say thanks for letting me in late, and I'm 6:30 here, so I seen that there's a mastermind going on. I thought, oh, Martin may let me in there.
I figured it was early in the morning for you, Patricia, and I thought, yep, not a problem. Come on in. Yeah. So, but once again, thank you both, and everyone who's jumped on as well and is commenting. And I really do appreciate every single one of you. And I look forward to speaking to you next week, if not before.
Cool.
Good evening. Bye for now.
I think Adam was going to say something.
Bye, Patricia. Yes.
Nice you're saying goodbye.